Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, an insane homeowner association president tried to poison and kill our service dog. To make matters worse, he got my expensive classic car towed, and that is when I finally drew the line. I sued this awful HOA and got revenge. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. Hey everybody, strap in for a very long story about my entitled piece of work HOA president from hell. I wanted to try and make this story as short as possible, but I already know it's gonna be long based on just how much serious crap this guy did to me. First, I'm gonna tell you about how he decided to poison my guide dog. To start with, he actually is not my guide dog, but it is my wife's. My wife is blind and medically needs him in order to get around safely. The HOA we live in has some strict rules regarding everything, and of course dogs are one of those things. The rules state that only dogs of certain sizes can live in the neighborhood, and they have to be under 25 pounds. As many people know, the ADA laws don't allow for these rules to apply to service animals. Obviously, she needs a bigger dog in order to hold the handlebar, and most guide dogs are average-sized breeds like ours, a lab. When the HOA president saw our giant dog, he ran over and started telling us off, saying that the rules stated we could not have a dog that size and that he was gonna fine us until we got rid of it. We explained that the dog is a medical device technically, and he cannot fine us or we can sue the HOA because of it. He left and I assume looked into it to find that he was right and could not force us to get rid of the dog. He decided that he was gonna do something much worse instead. One day the dog was really sick and we had no idea why. He was throwing up and could not seem to stay awake. Plus, he had some other gross symptoms that I will let your imagination fill in. When we took him to the vet, they ran tests and found out that he had ingested poison. After a stomach pumping and a few days rest, he was much better and ready to start helping us again. You might be wondering how I know the HOA president did it instead of some kind of accident maybe. Well, this was the first issue we ever had with the HOA president, so we decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. After the whole issue with him yelling at us, he brought us a package of dog treats and apologized for not knowing he was a service dog. We assumed the best of him, and if it wasn't for the vet asking if we changed any food, I would not have even thought to have the treats tested. It turns out the HOA president had put poison in the dog treats to try and kill him to get the big dog out of his neighborhood. Obviously, we did not have proof that he was the one that added the poison, so trying to start a big fight would not result in much. A few months later we got into our second fight with the HOA president, and this time it was about my car. So I usually park my car in the driveway, and it is a Buick GSX, which I love, and most people into old cars will know it's worth a pretty penny. My HOA president does not know anything about cars though, because he tries to start fights over it and tell me that I'm not allowed to park it in the driveway. What he did not know was, after the whole dog situation, I read all the rules of the HOA, so I would know if I was actually breaking one of them. The president said, "It is against HOA bylaws for that car to be in this neighborhood. It's yellow and you're only allowed to have black, silver or gray cars here. I can allow you to park it in your garage away from ice though. Otherwise I will have to get it taken away." I read the rules regarding cars. It just states that all cars need to be up to code with the DMV regulations and not be in a state of disrepair. My car obviously follows both of those rules and I'm not gonna move it. The president then said, "I'm getting sick of your stupid car being an eyesore. If you don't take care of it, I will, and trust me, you don't want me to." You don't have any right to touch my car. It is staying right where it is. I knew he was a total a-hole, but I really did not think that he was crazy enough to do what he did next. First, he did the total dick move of sending me letters in the mail, telling me the same crap that my car was against the rules and I was gonna have to pay for it. I mailed back the bills with a copy of the bylaws regarding cars attached and said to please indicate exactly what section of violations my car falls under. I was right that it stopped the letters, but that was not the part that made me realize this guy was crazy. So the HOA president owned an RV that he basically kept in the back of his driveway that led into the backyard. I have never seen him actually go camping or anything, so I don't know what he actually uses it for. I would not be surprised if it was just something to show off and he thought it would make people jealous. When I was out of the house, my beloved Buick GSX was still in the driveway and the HOA president made his move. He took his RV and lined it up with my car before reversing and basically running it over. My car was wrecked and that was exactly the state that he wanted it in. He called up the towing company the HOA uses, and now once the destroyed car was against the HOA policy, he had it towed away to the scrapyard. A classic car destroyed by a guy that decided to declare a war on the wrong person. My wife might be blind, but my neighbor saw the entire thing and sent me a video that he took on his phone. When I told the president that I knew what he did, he started claiming that it was accidental and an old car is not worth anything anyway. He assumed me suing him was a waste of time because I was not gonna get much from him, but he was wrong. That car was valued at about $180,000 because it was in great condition with a ton of original parts. It took a long time for the court case to happen, so I'll fast forward in the story for a moment. The judge did not believe his story for a minute about it being an accident, and the HOA president had no real way to explain why he was on that angle or even out in the RV just roaming the neighborhood. It was that same day that he learned how much the car was worth and what I was suing him for. It was actually a dual lawsuit because I had to sue him for the destruction of the property, but I had to sue the HOA as well for having it towed away. Knowing that he caused that state of it, he did not really have any right to get it sent away before even trying to contact me. HOA bylaws state that notice needs to be given before you tow a car. He ended up having to pay me a ton of money, but I will get back to that at the end. For now, I'm gonna go back because there was actually one more incident I had with him. So this was between him destroying my car and actually going to court for it. While waiting for everything, summer rolled around and I wanted to do one of my favorite pastimes of having a big barbecue. It was something I always grew up having and took on the tradition myself. I invite family as well as most of the neighbors that live close to me and I talk to regularly. As you can imagine, the HOA president was not one of the people I invited. We were having a great time, but of course the president showed up without any kind of warning to rain on all the fun. "President, what do you think you're doing back here?" "I'm having a barbecue," I answered. "I don't want you on my property after all the crap you pulled. You know the lawyers told you to stay away until court as well." "I'm here on behalf of the HOA though. You cannot have a barbecue in this neighborhood." "It is offensive and against the beliefs of some residents. Shut it down now." Me, I know that this is personal and there's nothing stating that I cannot cook a barbecue. If the HOA has a problem with me, they can send it in a letter. And now please leave before I have the police involved for you trespassing and harassing me. He left luckily, but I knew exactly what that entire thing was about. He is a vegan and enjoys bragging about it and trying to push it onto everybody else. He puts random signs up talking about how we are killing poor animals and that meat is murder. Now, I have nothing against people who are vegan. I am against people telling me that I cannot do something because they are vegan though. It is my property, my money, and I can do anything I want as long as it is legal. Now, I did get a letter in the mail stating that the HOA is making a new rule banning any of all barbecues that involve the cooking or serving of meat. And yeah, ripe stars, I guess you just gotta do a barbecue where you grill vegetables or something. That will certainly be a hit in the neighborhood. Anyway, the HOA board is not allowed to just create new rules, as some of you avid Reddit readers might know. There is a process and a vote and all of that stuff, so I knew that it was a lie. He was just trying to justify that rule by comparing it to a meeting of people that are attempting to suppress another group. That rule basically means any anti-race group would be shut down right away by the HOA, which makes total sense. It does not apply to this though, and they very well know it. I continue through the summer having barbecue parties, and each and every time I get him showing up and sending me letters telling me that I cannot do it. It turns into flyers of graphic animal torture and things that he is attempting to use to scare me out of doing it. The more he upsets me though, the more I wanna have these events just to bother him. The summer ends though with him not getting me to stop, and now we are back in the timeline of where the court situation happened. Also during that summer we were able to open a report of him potentially poisoning the dog treat, since now there was more evidence with the car situation and barbecue situation that he was clearly out to get us. Now I have laid out all of the 3 big things that went down between the HOA president and me, and I wanna get into the next part of the story. So this will cover the court results as well as the revenge that I got on him. If you thought I was stopping at a simple lawsuit, then you are very wrong indeed. I wanted to ruin this guy after all the crap he put me through. The courts, as I said before, were not believing anything he said and leaned heavily in my favor. He was gonna have to pay me a total of $300,000 at the end of everything. This was for the car, the harassment, and trying to poison and kill the dog. He was shocked that he lost and actually tried to get out of giving me the money in any way he could. I don't know exactly what he did, but he delayed it to where I did not actually get anything for almost half a year with his delay tactics. Now, the money was not the only thing that he was dealing with legally. Trying to poison a dog is not something taken lightly, and a service dog only makes things worse. He was being charged with animal cruelty for poisoning my dog and destruction of property because of my car. Neither thing was crazy serious, so he was not gonna go to jail for these things. However, he was given community service and he was getting a record, so if he did anything in the future, he would not get off as easily. Having a record did not sit well with the rest of the HOA board, and he was kicked out of his position for abuse of power. Now he was not an HOA president anymore, but just an entitled guy that lost a lot. That would be nothing compared to the sweet revenge that I got on him shortly after though. This man, for work, owned his own business, which was a company that sold luxury items. I got no idea where he actually got the stock, but he was selling these items at both his store and out of his home with a strict cash-only policy. I could sense that something was going on with this, and it was not anything good. I decided to do some research on his company, and in it I found very little to no information about it. Online, I was seeing all kinds of permits that ranged from food services to dry cleaning. Every 6 months or so, he would change what the permit of the store was, even though he was not actually offering any of these services he got the permit for. I have seen something like this before, and it turns out that they do this because they cannot justify how they are getting their stock and are also trying to hide money. I called the Better Business Bureau and tell them that a company being run seems to have some inconsistent information. I also lied and said I went to the physical store and found it was in horrible shape, with the walls looking ready to collapse and the floor being covered in gross stuff. I know that lying is wrong, but I really wanted to make sure that somebody not only looked into him on a computer, but also the physical store. I never got a call back, but from a couple clues and a word of mouth, I figured what happened because of my phone call. They visited the store and saw obviously that it was not what the permit was for and had to be shut down. They then started looking into my neighbor's finances and trying to track down where he got his inventory from, since none of that was being reported anywhere. It turns out that he was getting knockoff brands from a supplier in China and marking them up here as if they were real. Cheaper than the normal stores, but not enough to make anything off of it. His income showed a totally different story, where he was making very little to no money because he was pocketing most of the cash and laundering it to avoid paying taxes. What he did was run a bunch of small transactions via credit card and only report that as his total earnings. It made sense why he was claiming to sell things like cheap food or dry cleaning, because those numbers made sense. Of course, he was not paying any of the income towards taxes, so the IRS was now up his ass for a ton of money that he just didn't have. He was also shut down and his entire stock confiscated, so he had no way to sell more fake products to scam people out of their money. Especially once people got wind of this and started demanding their money back because he claimed the stuff was authentic. I don't know at what point his own wife gave up, but she jumped ship before he went totally bankrupt, divorcing him and taking as much as she could to avoid going broke with him. Honestly, I don't know anything about her, but she can probably do better. He might have done all of those things to me, but I think shining a light on his true self destroyed him. I did not even need to work that hard for revenge because he did not even hide his illegal activity very well. All it took was one phone call and a small investigation to find that his entire livelihood was based on a scam. With no money, no wife, and no position of power, it is not shocking that he moved away pretty quickly after that. Maybe trying to sell the house before the bank straight up took it so he could get a little money to live. I know this was a long story, but I hope that you got some enjoyment out of hearing about what might be the worst HOA president in the entire country. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you enjoyed this XXL HOA story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment if you want to support me. Thank you so much in advance, and now let's move on to the next one. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor what to do? My neighbor moved in above me about a month ago. Before she moved in, the complex renovated her unit so she has all hard floors except in the bedrooms. Unrenovated units like mine are all carpeted. Everything has been fine so far, except for at some point every week she vacuums her floors. Now obviously I understand her vacuuming the carpeted areas or her rugs, but she vacuums the hard floors too. It can go on for about half an hour. The issue is that I work from home and she vacuums in the middle of the day when I am on meetings. It's very hard for me to concentrate on my meetings when this happens. I then finally went up and knocked on her door and explained the situation to her. She was very apologetic and asked when is a better time for her to vacuum so that she does not disturb me. I asked why she needed to vacuum her hard floors as opposed to just sweeping or swiffering, and she said that she has a cat so she actually vacuums and swiffers. That's the only way she can be sure that she gets all of the hair up. I basically told her that she should maybe consider switching to both sweeping and swiffering instead of just using the vacuum cleaner. She said that was not possible, but said that she would make every attempt to vacuum during non-work hours. I asked that she also make sure not to do it too late in the day either, and she basically just closed the door on me, which made me think maybe I was an a-hole here. But I mean, I have to be able to do my job, so Reddit, am I the jerk? And yeah, Ripe Stars, I will relay this question to you. Do you think that OP is the a-hole in this story for complaining or not? Let us know what you think in the comments. Comment number 1, you are the a-hole. Your neighbor was prepared to make a very reasonable compromise by vacuuming at a time that was convenient for you. You have absolutely no right to dictate how another person cleans their apartment. Sorry. Lots of people vacuum hard floors. Comment number 2, you are the a-hole. She has every right to vacuum wherever she wants. And also she was kind and accommodating in asking what time would work for you. Buy some noise cancelling headphones for your meetings and stop imposing on others. Comment number 3, you are the a-hole. You have such a nice neighbor who's very willing to accommodate to your schedule. How she cleans your house is up to her and you are acting very entitled. Personally, at this point, my petty self would make sure to vacuum my floors for an hour every workday. The next one is titled, The Woman Who Pushed My Mild-Mannered Co-Worker to Commit Vandalism. I used to work for a video store, which is this thing that used to exist that was kind of like Netflix, except a Netflix you could walk inside. I was a shift leader, one step below assistant manager, and was working with my co-worker, whom we will call Dave. We were on a very busy Friday night. Dave was the sweetest, most mild-mannered person I ever met, chipper and mellow, and genuinely happy to be doing this menial, thankless job. Friday nights at the video store were always a chaotic mess from about 6 PM to 10 PM. Huge lines of people wanting movies for their weekend viewing pleasure and a very limited number of cash registers and employees to ring them up. The store I worked at had a fantastic store manager and as a result incredibly low turnover. Everyone there knew what they were doing and we moved the crowds out fast, provided no customer insisted on being difficult and taking up a register for 10 minutes while they tried to figure out what phone number or name they put their account under or something like that. So one particular crazy Friday, Dave and I are working the registers up front, doing our usual hustle to get through the hordes of movie renters when in walks the horrible Karen. THB from here on out. She had the sort of tan that one can only achieve by laying around and barking orders at the pool boy all day, every day. Her bleach blonde hair was teased to near Jersey Shore levels and her acid wash skinny capri screamed, "I regret becoming an adult and I'm actively attempting to revert to my teenage years despite clearly pushing 40. The dead yet somehow angry look in her eyes was both haunting and repulsive. She had 3 boys with her, ranging in age from roughly 4 to 9 years old, and she gave the impression that motherhood was the worst decision she ever made. She did not bother us while picking out movies, and while she was curt and generally crappy to Dave while he rang her up, she was not an exceptionally bad customer. Dave was his usual sweet self and managed to get her rentals in order, while she alternated between rolling her eyes at him, making heavy sighing noises before answering questions, and screaming at her kids to "Put that candy back right now." If you work retail, you know that these sorts of customers barely face you. Sure, they are unpleasant, but if they are not actively yelling at you and causing a scene, you just kind of assume they had a bad day and try not to make it any worse. Dave handed her the movies she rented and wished her a pleasant evening as she left, and then went back to ring up the next customer in the incredibly huge line. Less than 30 seconds later, the Karen angrily storms back in, clearly looking for something. Dave sees her and asks if she forgot something, and she snaps that she left her keys on the counter. Dave checks the counter and also the space behind his register and around the cash wrap, but does not see any keys. While still ringing up other customers, he asks me and the other people working that night if any of us have seen a set of keys. No one has. A couple of helpful, generally nice people waiting in line even hear this and do us a solid by looking around the front area. Since we cannot really come around when there is a huge line of customers, no one sees any keys. Dave is trying to be helpful, but he has other less horrible customers who need his attention. So Karen winds up storming around the cash wrap area, searching for her keys amongst the display cases that line the registers. This would not be a problem except that she is searching by pulling all the product down from its neatly organized POP space and just leaving it in piles on the floor or the counter. We are busy and she is clearly ready to explode, so we don't even try to stop her. We both know it will be easier to just clean up her mess than it would be to try and reason with her. After tearing our cash wrap displays apart, she starts loudly accusing us of hiding her keys out of spite. Maybe she has seen clerks, and maybe she is fully aware that she is an unpleasant Karen to the plebeians that ring up her purchases, but she has become absolutely certain that we threw her keys in the trash. She demands that we dig through the trash right this second and give her back her keys. We explain that we have not seen her keys and we certainly did not throw them away. Dave even takes a moment away from his register to show her the small trash bin we keep up front, which is almost empty and clearly does not contain any keys. However, Karen is not satisfied. She wants us to check the big outdoor trash can by the door, despite the fact that her truck is parked right in front of the store and that no one could have thrown her keys away in that can without her seeing them. She is still insistent that we drop everything and go pick through the garbage. Honestly, if it were a slow time and there weren't any other customers waiting, one of us probably would have thrown on some gloves and just done it. Years of retail make you highly likely to do something you know is stupid because it is always easier than trying to convince a customer that their request is, in fact, stupid. It is Friday night though, and there is no way we are closing a register to placate her obvious personality disorder. She storms out again and Dave looks out the window a minute later and informs me that she has dumped out our outside garbage right in the middle of the sidewalk and is forcing her children to dig through it. Nothing like adding a little child labor to your harassment of innocent retail clerks to really take things up a notch. He mentions that she's probably going to leave that mess there, and he is not wrong. Karen gets a cab or a ride home from someone, so the next time we look outside she is gone, leaving only a pile of video store garbage and her shiny new truck in her wake. Later that night after closing, we are doing our standard restocking and straightening of the concessions out front when Dave yells for me. I look up and he is pulling a set of keys out of one of the candy bins. The same candy bin that Karen's child had been digging through before she started screaming at him like a volatile harpy. Now, I don't know if said child just happened to drop the keys and forget, or if it was purposeful revenge for the screaming, or if he realized that he had dropped them but was too terrified of his psychotic mother to speak up, but either way, her keys had been there the whole time. Without a word, Dave took the keys and walked out to the parking lot where Karen's shiny new red truck was still stranded. Because Dave was such a nice guy, I assumed he was going to toss them in the back and maybe throw a note on the windshield or something, but instead I watched him hold the keys in his hand and slowly gouge a scratch from the back of the tailgate to the front headlight and then throw those keys in the same trash can that THB has appended during her rage. He walked back in, saw me staring and said, "Karen made me pick up garbage, dug her and her keys." And with that, he quietly resumed his closing duties. And yeah, Ripe stars, even though that is exactly what the Karen in this story deserved, I'm not really sure if she learned her lesson, because in the end she does not know who keyed her car and what happened to her keys. But still, I would say solid revenge from retail. And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, then please feel free to check out my Patreon over at patreon.com/ripeyoutube or join my YouTube membership program by clicking the join button to get access to even more exclusive videos. Thank you so much for your support and I will see you again tomorrow.